But at this time, I would like to introduce Gregory Nemitz. He's a Congress candidate for United States Congress here in the 2nd District. He's a Twin Falls businessman. Let's give him a warm Twin Falls welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Gregory Nemitz. I'm here today to talk about my candidacy as a Republican for Idaho's 2nd Congressional District. A lot of people recognize my name and ask if I'm related to Admiral Nemitz of World War II fame. I always tell them, no, he spelled his name wrong. My name's spelled N-E-M-I-T-Z. As a Republican candidate for the 2nd Congressional District, I believe Idaho residents deserve a congressman who will follow the people's instruction, then lead in Congress, and not follow the Republicans back in Washington. This is why I'm seeking election, to be a strong, reliable spokesman in Washington on behalf of all Idaho residents. I can make a difference. I think we need to see real change in the federal government. We need to return to Idaho's previously held conservative Republican values that have been left by the wayside during the last couple of decades. I'm inviting citizens from all walks of life to get to know me and join with us in this campaign. With your support, May 27th primary is the first step towards a brighter future for Idaho. I believe in the representative form of government that our nation's founders intended. That means I will listen to and learn from my constituents, the people of District 2, and represent them. I will vote on the issues presented to me in Congress, not for my personal convictions, but cast my votes as the majority of the people in District 2 want the issues decided. I embrace conservative Republican values of liberty, property rights, equal opportunities for everyone. The federal government has grown too large and too intrusive in our people's affairs, and I will work to reverse that indignity and affront to our people's character and integrity. I value my experiences in business and international travel. These experiences have prepared me for this challenge that I have undertaken as a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives. I will faithfully execute the duties of that office if elected and uphold and defend the Constitution as it was written. I want to talk about the economy. The current crop of Republicans in Congress have lost sight of their conservative Republican roots. Although the Republican Party platform mandates sound fiscal policy, those seated Republicans continually ignore responsible fiscal policy and spend outrageously, far beyond the means of this nation's economy. America's economy has stumbled and is on the brink of a full-blown depression to rival the scope of the economic woes that gripped our country in the 30s. To create real and lasting beneficial change, fundamental economic issues must be altered. I will work and fight hard to pass laws that reestablish competing currencies in America. These fundamentally sound monies will compete against Federal Reserve notes and bring on a new era of finance that will permanently discourage the federal government from irresponsible and disastrous fiscal policies. I will also co-sponsor bills that eliminate taxes on commodities and reduce the taxes for working families and the elderly. Americans of all ages deserve no less. I want to talk about Idaho's water. I am deeply concerned with the protection of our environment and the conservation of our natural resources. Like many other human endeavors, protection of the environment requires a sense of balance. Mankind's needs for such essentials, such as the development of water resources and fire protection, are not properly sacrificed in the interest of alleged endangered species. When elected, I will work to amend the Endangered Species Act to exclude water. I believe we should judiciously place the needs of humans at a higher level than the needs of rats, weeds, and fish. I support the full development for beneficial uses of the water resources of America and Idaho. I will encourage the construction of new dams in the 2nd District to produce emission-free hydroelectric power and as well to provide flood control, water supply systems, irrigation, and recreation. At the federal level, I support transferring management of all intrastate water projects to Idaho and limit the federal authority to regulate water rights matters, which have traditionally been the concern and prerogative of the state of Idaho. The pricing of water from federal projects to provide the lowest reasonable rates for agricultural users in our cities. And expand experimental programs for saltwater conversion, including the use of fission and fusion energy, with the goal of reducing the cost of such processes. I want to talk about Social Security. Many ask, how can we protect Social Security trust funds from politicians who want the ability to spend it at will? I appreciate the rightful expectations of the elderly to live in dignity and with economic security. If elected, I will support legislation that requires the federal government to protect Social Security trust funds in a special trust solely for the purpose of providing benefits to the beneficiaries. I also believe that Social Security recipients should be able to earn additional income without penalty to their Social Security income. They work for it, they earn it, they deserve it. A Social Security promise made should be a Social Security promise kept. It's unfortunate that for too long our elderly citizens have been victims of irresponsible government-fostered borrowing from their Social Security trust fund. It must stop before it's too late. If the federal government had always been required to protect Social Security funds as a special trust, the existing gigantic debt to that fund would have never accumulated. Instead of constantly raising the federal debt limit and heaping a ticking time bomb on the elderly's retirement and creating a heavy burden for all our children, we should instead begin to pay off the Social Security IOUs to avoid a costly system collapse. The elderlies are a victim of irresponsible government-fostered borrowing from the Social Security Fund. I believe the next Congress must act to pass legislation to require the federal government to protect Social Security funds as a special trust, using those funds solely for the purpose of providing benefits to the beneficiaries. I want to talk about our veterans. Many politicians talk about honoring our veterans and their sacrifices. Yet so often the rhetoric obscures the reality that the federal government treats veterans very badly. Congress wastes billions of dollars on countless unconstitutional programs, but fails to provide adequately for the men and women who carry out the most important constitutional function, national defense. Any nation willing to ask its men and women to risk their lives serving overseas must also be willing to fulfill the promises that were made to them when they enlisted in our country's service. We cannot provide adequate care with a VA that is run like the IRS. One of the most shameful ways our veterans are mistreated is in the area of concurrent receipt benefits. Existing federal rules force disabled veterans to give up their military retirement pay in order to receive VA disability benefits. Every VA disability dollar paid to a veteran is deducted from his retirement pay, effectively creating a disabled veterans tax. No other group of federal employees is subject to this unfair standard. In every other case, disability pay is viewed as distinct from standard retirement pay. Ultimately, we can best honor our veterans and our current armed forces by changing our foreign policy to one that serves America's interests. Today, soldiers are our future veterans, and they should never be sent to war without clear objectives that serve to define American national security interests. I support reforming the VA to make sure that it efficiently provides affordable care and benefits to our veterans, giving employers a tax credit for hiring veterans, narrowing the pay gap that exists between military and private sector pay scales, restoring health care coverage to retired service members and reducing their out-of-pocket costs, establishing a House Select Committee on POW and MIA affairs, fully investigating the causes of the Gulf War illness and providing all necessary treatments to veterans suffering from these illnesses, and immediately ending the requirement that disabled veterans give up their military retirement pay in order to receive VA disability benefits. Having been born and raised in a U.S. Air Force family and seeing firsthand the personal sacrifices made by our men and women in uniform, I feel an obligation to our veterans and current armed forces. As a congressman, I will fight hard to make sure veterans receive the care and respect they deserve.